This is part 2 of interviewing Ruth Steele, I think about three or 4 years after the last one. We're in Sarasota, Florida. It's June 14th, 2014. And we have my mom, Stephanie Steele, Ruth's daughter, here to follow up and sort of talk more about things that she remembers and hear more about Ruth's great life.
So, Mom.
Yes, Stephanie.
Tell us about Eva's siblings and family and Dave's, just so we have a little historical
Define
info.
who those people are.
Well,
Eva being your mother and Dave being your father.
Eva Siegel was Eva Kahn, K-A-H-N. And her mother was my grandma Fanny, who I loved dearly. She was one of the sweetest women. And for a brief time, she lived with us when we lived in New Rochelle. And she used to complain that she didn't like it in New Rochelle because she looked out the window and she saw nothing, no people, nothing. And she was used to living in Manhattan, where when she looked out the window, she saw a lot of activity. And Grandma used to love to bake. She used to spread out a big thing on the kitchen table, and she would make apple strudel, and she would make yeast cake, and she was a fabulous cook.
Grandma was, Eva.
Grandma Kahn.
Grandma Kahn.
Eva Kahn also was a wonderful cook.
That's what women did in those days,
That-
more than...
Yes, yes.
But now, who was the one who called her husband was...
Fanny, my mother's mother.
Explain how
My
that...
mother's mother was born in Russia, and when she was 16 years old, I don't know how it happened, but a man who had children her age married her and took her to America.
He was widowed, I assume.
Yes, he was widowed, and as I said, he had grown children. So Grandma Kahn was a very modest, very sweet person, and she always called him Mr. Kahn.
Even though they were married.
Even though they were married.
Do you know what her maiden name was?
No, I don't know what her maiden name was. And we always used to laugh because she was so modest that she used to get undressed in the closet. She never wanted him to see her when she didn't have clothes on.
But she did have children with him.
Oh, yes.
So, so he must have seen her.
Well, maybe they did it in the dark.
Maybe, yes.
So anyway, yes, they had many children. There was.
Did she love him?
I have no idea. Probably not.
How could she?
Yeah, probably not.
So his children were her age, and
Yeah.
they were her stepchildren.
Yeah,
I wonder how
which
that.
is very weird.
I wonder how that worked. I wonder how those kids
I don't
felt.
know. I really never saw the stepchildren.
Oh, no?
No. There was one that I saw who I didn't like, Uncle Harry.
Okay, so say who were Eva's siblings?
Eva's siblings were Aunt Rose, Aunt Lily, Uncle Mo, Uncle Harry, Uncle Jack. And Uncle Mo had a son who was Bob Kahn, who changed his name to Bob Kane, and he was the Batman originator.
Is that in the other tape?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on Dave's side.
And then on Dave's side, Dave had brother Harry, brother
So Dave is your father.
David, my father. He had Uncle Charlie, Uncle Harry, Uncle Meyer, Uncle Teddy, and Aunt May. He had 5 siblings.
And do you know where his parents were from?
Vienna. right?
Vienna. His dad was from Vienna, and I think he was a tailor. I'm not sure, but I remember a sewing machine, and I really never knew him. He died when I was 3 years old, so I
But
never
Dave
knew
and
him.
Eva were both born in the United States.
Yes, Dave and Eva
They
were
were
both
not
born in the United States.
immigrants.
Right. And Dave and Eva met each other on the Atlantic City boardwalk, Actually, Dave picked up Eva. And they were a very loving, romantic couple. Dave always said Eva was the most beautiful and the best cook in the whole world. So I had a very happy childhood.
I think we talked about that in
Yeah,
the
we
first
did
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
So now tell us about how you met Leonard.
I met
Define
Leonard.
People are.
Well, the only people, okay. Leonard is my father,
Was your father?
was my father.
Okay, I was friendly with a girl, Jean Pollock, and she was friendly with Wilma Shack. At this point, Leonard was taking Wilma Shack out.
They were practically engaged.
No,
No?
They were going out, a lot. So one Sunday afternoon, Jean said to me, let's call up Wilma and see what she's doing, and we'll go out together. So I said, fine. So she called up Wilma, and Wilma said, well, come on over. Leonard is visiting me, and he just got a new convertible Ford, and we'll all go for a ride
And this,
together.
what year is this?
This was, I married him in 36. I think it was 2 years before.
And so you were 20. This is 1934 and you're 20 years old.
Yes, yes.
Wilma must rue the day.
So we went, and Wilma lived on West End Avenue, and we all went up, and there was Leonard, and I thought, God, this is a good-looking guy. And Jean and I rode, he had a rumble seat. Jean and I sat in the rumble seat, and the whole time we were driving, Leonard kept looking at me in the rumble seat,
In his rearview mirror.
in his rearview mirror.
Explain what a rumble seat is.
It's a seat in the back of a convertible car.
So it was basically a two-seater with some kind of seating
Yeah,
possible.
Yeah.
It wasn't like official seating,
it was extra seating, sort of.
but it wasn't. How did you get into the rumble
You
seat?
climbed in.
It didn't have a door.
No,
And unlike two-seaters today where the driver's
It was
seat
different.
folds forward, you had to really climb over.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So we had just moved to 900 West End Avenue, and Leonard couldn't find my telephone number in the book. So 2 days later, my doorbell rings, and there he was.
I remember that he had the secretary in his father's office research in the phone book all the seagulls to try to find her, but because you had just moved, it wasn't listed
Yeah.
yet.
So anyway, so we started going out,
And that's
This-
when he started calling you Bunny. That
well,
was-
at one Easter, he bought me a big stuffed rabbit, and for some strange reason, we started calling each other Bunny. He called me Bunny. I called him
good thing
Bunny.
he didn't get you a frog.
So,
Wait.
But for the viewers' benefit, I mean, when I say they called each other Bunny, I mean they never used their names.
that's right.
They were both Bunny, and it was
Yeah.
Bunny. Can you pass me the?
Yeah.
I mean,
really,
what a bizarre
really,
thing.
really crazy, ridiculous.
And for you both to be Bunny.
yeah, Bun and Bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Isn't
I
that
was
strange?
Bunny. He was Bun. I don't know.
I mean, if his family was religious and he bought you an Easter gift, I found
Yeah,
that
that's
kinda
pretty
strange
funny too.
Yeah.
Religious Jewish.
Incidentally, his grandfather was a rabbi. Dad's grandfather was
Right.
a rabbi.
And he was institutionalized, as I recall. He was in a mental institution.
Who? The
Dad's
grandfather?
grandfather suffered from depression. There was the depression, and Sam's father.
Yeah.
Sam is Leonard's father.
Sam is Leonard's father.
I was told that he
Really? I
was
don't
in
remember
a
that.
mental hospital
I
at
don't
times.
remember that. I don't remember that. Okay, so now where are we?
So,
Uh,
okay, I thought we took, when I was growing up, my mom was very involved, not very involved, but was reasonably involved in my activities. And the girls wanted to have a brownie troupe, but we needed a leader who had to go through brownie training, so
That's what I
Mom
did, yeah.
went through training to become a brownie leader, along with Anne Greenman's mother,
Right.
Isabel Greenman.
Right.
And so we had a brownie troupe, and we met, was it weekly?
Every week.
Every
We met
week.
Every week.
And we would wear our uniforms, and
Yeah.
you had a uniform.
Yeah.
And we would, I don't know what we did. We did
We did arts
activities.
and crafts.
We
We
did
did
arts
a lot
and
of arts
crafts.
and crafts.
And then at the end,
There
we
was a
would,
parade.
a circle.
Oh,
We would stand in a circle and hold hands and
Yes,
sing some
yes.
song. And everybody wanted to hold my mom's hand.
yeah. Because
And
I
I-
was the leader.
Well, so was
Yeah.
Mrs. Greenman, and she wasn't as popular as my mom. And always felt so terrible that nobody was running to grab her hand. So I would go to her because I had my mom all the time. So I could hold her hand, and then we just needed one more person. But everybody was always clamoring to hold my
Yeah.
mom's
That
hand.
was fun.
Yeah, and then we did a parade, a Memorial Day parade through a
Yeah, the
cemetery.
Girl Scout parade.
The Girl
yeah.
Scout parade.
Yeah. Yeah,
And that was fun.
That was fun.
And another thing that you did for me was in the summer we belonged to a beach club in Atlantic Beach,
Yes.
and we had a cabana
We had a cabana, and we used to go
every day.
every day. I had you and Freddie down to the beach, which I incidentally hate the beach. I never liked the water and I never liked the beach. But I felt that my children had to have morning sunshine. So off I went. We
And I
went to
think
the
you
beach.
packed lunch.
Yeah.
We would
And
have.
very often we'd stay all day and then Dad would meet us on
Really?
the beach. Yeah.
How did he get from the train to the beach?
I don't know. I don't remember. But he would come, and sometimes we would stay and barbecue at the beach.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, well,
But it was suffering for you.
yes, but I did it for my children.
Let's see. Just review the different places you lived because you moved around a lot.
Yes, instead of painting, Grandma said that was too much trouble, and she loved to move. She loved to get new apartments. Well, anyhow, when I was very little, we lived in New Rochelle. And then, you know, there was the Depression, and Dave lost all his money, and we had to move to the Bronx. And we did live in a very nice apartment on Knox Place near Marshallou Parkway in the Bronx.
And at that time, the Bronx was totally Jewish and middle class. It was a very
Yeah.
nice place
Yeah.
to live.
Yeah. And so I went to school there, and we lived there about 7 years. And then we moved to 420 Riverside Drive, which was 114th Street. And
Oh, you know, my donor Aaron Frankel lives at 425 Riverside Drive.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
and Stephen
Yeah.
lives across the street.
Yeah, yeah. So you got pulled out of school.
no, I kept going to the same school. I had to take the subway
You
because I
kidding.
was going to Evander Child's high school at that time. And I had to take the subway and go all the way up to Van Cortlandt Park
Oh my goodness.
on the subway, which I hated. But that's what I had to do.
So you finished high school
I finished
there.
high school there, yes.
Ah.
And
So you were on Riverside Drive for many years? More than the 2 years before painting?
yes, Riverside Drive.
And you were on East 96th Street.
Oh, I was on East 96th Street when I was very young.
Do you remember the number?
53 East 96th Street, yeah. And at that time, Uncle Meyer, who was widowed, lived in the same apartment building with us. And we were very friendly with his two children, Eddie and Selma. Eddie was obese. And Selma had St. Vitus dance. She was very sickly. And they had a nursemaid, Anna, who was very good, I remember.
So he didn't remarry.
He never remarried.
So who is this exactly?
This is Dave's brother,
So this is your father's brother.
my father's
Okay.
brother.
And apropos of moving, you were telling me that Grandma Eva loved to rearrange.
She loved to rearrange the furniture, and Dave used to get very upset because he'd come home at night and everything would be in another place. He never knew where he would find anything.
But one of the funny things is that Grandma Eva did that in your house with Dad. She would rearrange.
Yeah, and she hated that my drawers were never neat. So she would come in and take everything out and get it all neat, you know.
And my dad hated that he would come home and his house was rearranged.
And he was obsessively neat.
Yeah.
If you touched one thing on
on
his dresser,
he knew it.
He had a fit. Yeah, he was terrible.
I remember he had rubber bands hanging from the trunk of an elephant. He had like a bronze elephant. And
I still have that elephant.
Do you really?
Yeah.
And if you touched the rubber band, he knew. He knew. Somebody touched this.
Yeah. That's the way he was.
Yes. Yes.
So,
okay, let's talk about your love for arts and the piano.
well, I always loved drawing. In fact, I used to sketch. When I was in school, I would always try to sketch different people, you know, that were there. And I always loved to draw. I never did anything about it.
Did your parents encourage it? Did they think you were...
No.
She's an artist. I'm talking like Roma now. She's a gifted child. No.
No.
No
They
big deal.
No big deal.
And what about the piano?
The piano, Grandma was very strict. I had to practice, and I did. I used to practice every day.
And you took lessons?
I took lessons, had some terrible teachers, but...
but you loved it. It wasn't torture.
Well, I didn't love it in the very beginning. Just doing the exercises was awful. But I did get to love it, and I'm very happy that I did.
And you got a piano when you were 12, is what you always told me. You've had a piano since you were 12.
Yes.
So that was a significant cost. Your parents must have been supportive of you doing the piano.
Yes.
Did Sylvia and Ben do the piano?
Sylvia and who?
Sylvia and Norman.
They all got lessons, and none of them...
Well, people watching this know.
No, don't
Okay,
assume
Sylvia is Ruth's sister and Norman is her brother.
Right. They all had lessons, but they didn't take to it and they wouldn't do it, and that was the end of it. But I kept up with it through school, all the way through school.
To this morning.
Huh?
And through this morning.
Yes. I had lessons for years and years and years. And then because of the art and the music, I became very interested in the Five Towns Music and Art Foundation. And I used to run concerts there. And
you were an officer?
I was a vice president.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to have concerts in our homes. And we used to entertain people. And then we would play the piano for them. I loved it. It was wonderful. And we had some real fine artists. I used to belong to a society, and I used to have very famous concert people that I would hire. This was for the high school, for the Five Towns Music and Art Foundation.
Right. Not the high school.
When I was at high school. No, I mean...
Five Towns had its own building.
At its own, yes.
At one time, Five Towns Music and Art Foundation was in the elementary school at the end of our street, but it was no longer.
Yeah.
It was no longer an operating school.
But we used to run concerts at the high school.
Oh, okay.
We used to run them at night.
You used the auditorium.
We used the auditorium, and I used to present them. I used to present the artists.
And they would always, the local paper would cover it,
Yeah.
and Grandma was always in the papers with her picture all dressed up as, introducing the famed
star.
pianist.
Yeah.
You had Marvin Hamlish
Yes.
once.
Yes.
I don't know if our viewers know who Marvin Hamlish was.
We had a very famous cellist when he first started. Yo-Yo
Yo-Yo Ma?
Yo-Yo Ma, yes.
Wow.
Yes. We had some very famous concert people. It was very successful on a concert series. I was at the head of the concert series. And then, I don't know what started me, I decided to try sculpture. So I went to the new school and I studied with Hein Gross and Manolo Pasquale, and I immediately fell in love with sculpture. That's the first piece I ever did. That
man.
This
on the
white
floor,
stuff,
the white
yeah.
piece.
Yeah, it's probably hard
That was
to.
the first thing I ever did.
You're gonna bring it
Yeah, why
over?
not?
Okay.
That's heavy.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's not too bad.
It was just a great big stone, and I just whacked at it.
And that was the first piece.
That was the first thing I ever did.
You
yes.
chiseled this.
Huh?
So you chiseled this. It's too heavy.
Yeah,
I got it.
with a hammer and a chisel. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty good.
yeah. And,
So what year is this? We're not moving in any chronological order here.
oh God, what year was that?
Oh boy, I have no idea.
I don't know.
wonder if it
I mean,
says-
I remember when you started doing sculpture, but so I was home and I was a conscious human being at the time. So I would say, I don't know, how are we doing on time, Eric?
20 minutes in.
Okay. Well, and I remember you set up in your closet. You had a
Yes,
walk-in closet,
yes.
and Grandma used the walk-in closet as her
As
art
an
studio.
art studio.
But didn't you do it in the basement too?
No,
No, that's where you stored things.
yeah. And,
And this head behind us is,
I did at home. I did
Yeah.
that at home.
and that supposedly is Dad.
It's a combination of Dad and Freddie,
Oh.
actually.
So a lot
Uh,
of sculpture.
Yeah. And loved it. And I even went on 57th Street to
The Art Students League.
League. I did painting, which I did not take to. And what else?
And your artistic talent has managed to skip some generations. We're hoping that perhaps Libby
Maybe Livy has it.
or Reese
Yeah.
also seems to have some artistic talent.
Yeah.
Is
But
Clark?
no, not that he's manifested at this point. Talk about how you got involved with learning about finance and Wall Street. You who did not even have your own checking account.
Yeah, Dad would never
Pla-
give me a check.
place
Dad
this
would
in
never
a-
give me a check.
Okay,
Place this in a
well,
chronology.
I can place this in chronology because it happened when Dad had surgery and was incapacitated, and so
I had to
and
take
that- well,
care of.
it was he had that really serious back operation when he turned 65. It was on his surgery. It was on his birthday. When he turned 65. So he was born in 1912. So 65, 75, 77. We had just moved back to New York, and he had that terrible, terrible operation, and he was really incapacitated,
Yeah.
and so you had to take over bill paying and money management, which
Yeah,
you
which
knew
I
nothing
knew
about.
nothing about. So I went to the new school and took a course in investments, which appealed to me a lot. I was really surprised. And then also, Dad was a, what do you call it, on a bank?
He was on the board.
He was on the board of
a director.
Long Island Savings and Loan Bank. So he had, he was one of the board members, and the chairman of the bank said that I could take his place and be on the loan committee at the bank. I knew nothing whatever about mortgages and loans, but I really got a very good education there and learned a lot and really enjoyed doing it. And I've loved it ever since.
And Dad was not a great investor. I
No.
remember he had Cuban railroad bonds and some other bizarre things, and you took it over
Yeah.
and parlayed it into a major investment machine, and you're now on the only woman on the investment committee at Sarasota Bay Club. Talk about moving to Sarasota
Yeah.
and your life here.
Again, put this in.
So this was, my dad died in 1988,
Yeah.
and you were actually already planning to do a little snowbirding
Yes.
and come down.
Yeah. My
for-
brother had moved. My brother had moved to
I shouldn't talk to
Sarasota.
the camera?
No, but let her talk more.
Okay, yes, I'm talking.
My brother had moved to Sarasota, and I went to visit him, and decided that Sarasota was a beautiful place, and I would try renting there and see how I liked it. So I liked it so much, I did it for 10 years. I rented on Longboat Key. And then,
Well, it was Sydney.
what?
You met Sydney, and he lived down here,
Yes,
and he wanted you to be here year round.
yeah,
Sydney being after Sam. Because you were going to move into Manhattan with
yes,
Sam,
yes, yes, yeah.
but then he died.
Yeah. So then, I met a woman, Frida Safia. How did I meet her? I forget. Someone introduced me to her. I became friendly with her. She lived at Bay Plaza, and I thought Bay Plaza was just lovely, and that I might like to live there permanently. So I started looking, and I looked at one apartment there, fell in love with it, and said, this is what I'm going to do. So
You sold
I sold my house in Woodmere, and
77 Johnson Place.
77
Which you had
Johnson.
lived in for
50 years.
50, well, more than 50 years.
More than 50
Because you
years.
bought that house in what year?
1949. I was 4 years old.
29. You were 4 years old, and then we lived there for over 50 years.
How much did you buy it for? Do you remember?
Yes, $31,000, and sold it for $600,000.
In 2000, when did you sell it? 77 Johnson Place.
2000.
You moved down, it was 2001.
2001. How I got to Sarasota Bay Club, my friend Sylvia Cowan had moved here, and I used to come over and have lunch with her here, and she kept telling me what a wonderful place this was, and I really didn't pay much attention to it, had no idea of moving into a retirement place, considering I'm too young.
What age were you when you moved in here?
90,
No.
let's say no. I moved here 3
Yeah,
years
3
ago.
years ago.
Yeah.
I was
96.
96. What are numbers anyway? They don't count. But I must say that living here has been the most wonderful experience for me. This place has everything. If I had stayed at Bay Plaza, I would have been very lonesome, because you don't just become friendly with everyone in an apartment house. But here, I immediately became friendly with lots of different interesting, lovely people, and I've loved every minute of it. As soon as I moved in, I felt right at home, and it's been a wonderful experience. I'm very happy that I'm here.
So, let me just look at my notes. Yeah, we've covered almost everything. Not quite. Do you want to, and if you don't want to do it now, we could do it separately, have any message any life messages?
My life message is that when you're young enough, take advantage of it and do everything that you possibly can that you enjoy. Because when you get old, you just can't do. You can't travel, and you just can't do things that you did. And appreciate being young. That's really my most important message. Because when you're young, you just think it's going to be like this forever. And unfortunately, it's not. I have been very fortunate health-wise. So I'm still driving and I still can do most things. But it is not like when you're younger. So just enjoy everything.
Is there anything you enjoy about getting older?
Not much.
How about speaking your mind,
Yes,
which you didn't do when you were young?
right. No, I was very reserved when I was young, and I am not anymore. I
What-
really say exactly what I think.
Do you think being more reserved was a function of being younger, or anything else?
Well, I was very immature when I was younger. Even when I got married, I was really, really very immature. And it took me a long time to grow up. But
Well, what do you mean by immature?
if someone told me something, like my husband, I felt that that was what I had to do.
I don't know that mature is the word. What would you say, Eric?
I think it's the difference between
Assertive.
assertiveness, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it can still be a spectrum of maturity.
Uh,
But go on.
I really became my own person, and I enjoy that a lot, and I enjoy my relationships with people, which are much better than I ever had when I was younger. I mean, I could start up a conversation with a perfect stranger and really have a good time doing it. Here, if some person I see that I like, I'll talk to them and say, let's have dinner one night, which I never ever
Yeah.
would have done. And it is a wonderful thing.
And you have men as friends,
Yes.
which you never had in
Never
your
did,
life,
no.
and more women friends than you ever had.
Yes. More social life than I ever
Yeah.
had. Yeah.
No, this is just a fabulous.
This is a
Place.
wonderful place to live. It is.
But it also sounds like it's a function of where you are in your life and
Yes.
Yes.
things like that. I think it's place is one aspect of it.
And I'm very grateful that I have my daughter, who is,
I think you said stuff like this.
well,
in the
who has
last
been
one.
the most wonderful daughter in the world. And I love my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. I have been very blessed, I really have. But most important to me is my daughter.
Mm-mm.
Could you talk a little bit more, and we may have covered this in the last one, but talk a bit more about what it was like to grow up in New York in the 1920s when you go back and visit? Does anything feel different? I mean, you've been certainly back many times.
Actually, I could never live in New York again. I'm really overcome by the gigantic buildings, the amount of noise and the loads of people everywhere. It is just foreign to me now. I just could never do it again. I mean, living in Sarasota is perfect.
When you were growing up in the Bronx or Manhattan, I mean, did you just get out and walk places? I mean, were
Yeah.
there safety issues the way there are now? Was it considered
No.
safe? You could get on the subway, on the bus, no big deal. You didn't have to be escorted places. Was it very safe?
I really don't, I never even thought about it. It was safe, yeah.
It must have been if it wasn't an issue.
Yeah, yeah.
So crime was not anything. I mean, there certainly were good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods.
Yeah, no, I never felt intimidated or frightened by where I lived. No.
And there weren't
That
as
is-
many cars in New York then.
No. When we lived in Woodmere, I used to think nothing of driving into the city. And that is my life.
No, there's a lot more to that. Can you talk about having kids? Did you look forward to having kids? Was it unexpectedly difficult or enjoyable?
When I got married, I said to my husband, we should not have children for 5 years because, as I said, I was very immature.
Well, you were
And
only,
the
how old? You
I was 21. And I was very afraid. The idea of having children absolutely floored me.
and you promptly got pregnant.
I promptly got pregnant and was scared to death of the whole process. I kept wondering how in the world the baby's ever going to get out of me, and would I ever get through it? And then when
Where was Freddie born?
in
I was born at New York
Presbyterian
Hospital. He was born at
Hospital. Presbyterian Hospital, and he was late. I remember I had to take castor oil twice to bring it on.
Yeah.
And we stayed in New York at the Waldorf Astoria, waiting for the birth.
Well, that was me.
Was that with you?
And
my
the water
water
broke.
Yeah,
That was.
I was running through the Waldorf Astoria.
Dorothy Stevens?
Dottie Stevens.